The fifth episode of the second series, O Donnell, is based on the story of the same name from the Railway series book, Edward the Blue Engine. This is the first episode from series 2 to have a runaway, something that we've all come accustomed to in the series. So what's the story of the episode? One day, James is forced to wait at Wellsworth for Edward to arrive with his train. James is infuriated by this and grumbles about Edward being late again, though Edward finds it funny. That evening, even though it's still daylight, but what the hell, James is still grumbling when he puffs back to the shed. He complains to Thomas and Percy that Edward is always making the other engines wait and clanks about like a lot of old iron. Thomas and Percy are outraged at this remark and tell James that Edward could beat him in a race any day, to which James sarcastically says he would like to see. The next morning, James's driver suddenly falls ill and is sent home. With only his fireman on duty, James is relegated to shunt him for the day to his annoyance. After the fireman uncouples James from his trucks, the signalman spots James leaving with no one in his cab and sets the signals at danger to halt traffic down the line. And when he tells the fireman what happened, it turns out that two boys were seen on James's footplate fiddling with his controls, only to run when he started. The signalman's telephone rings with an engine inspector on the other end. After finishing the call, the signalman then tells the fireman to get a shunter's pole and a coil of wire rope. The inspector soon arrives in Edward and the fireman is ready with the pole and rope. With James's fireman and the inspector riding along with his own crew, Edward sets off. Meanwhile, James happily sails along the line, unaware that anything is wrong and simply glad to be free from shunting. No surprise there. Before long, his mood changes as he finds himself starting to go faster while realising that his cab is empty, and he starts to panic. By now, Edward is racing out of Knapford and heading down the line as fast as he can to catch up with James. Soon the two are almost neck and neck, with Edward giving it everything he can to keep up. The driver does his best to keep Edward steadily in line, while the inspector climbs outside and makes it to Edward's front with a noose of rope hanging from the shunting pole and tries to slip it over James's right buffer. It is difficult for the inspector, but he finally manages to catch the buffer and tie it to Edward's left one. James's fireman scrambles over to his cab and takes control, allowing both engines to finally slow down. As the two tired engines approach Crosby, James apologises for his early insult, which Edward accepts. Waiting for them on the platform is the Fat Controller. He congratulates the crew on their rescue and then tells James that he can rest before he takes the next train, while Edward is rewarded with a trip to the works to get his worn parts mended. Edward is delighted, remarking how nice it would be to run without clanking. You could make the argument that this might be the final episode of Edward's story arc for Series 2, but that's not really the case since his arc would carry on episodes later. This is the first episode from Series 2, as I said, to have a runaway, and it's just as exciting and enduring as the previous runaway episodes. It also begins the trend of James and Edward's relationship, something that the TV series would often exploit in future episodes, even when the show went downhill during the hit entertainment era. But we are here to talk about the good parts of Thomas the Tank Engine this year. This is one of the episodes from Series 2 that I often found myself rewatching tons of times when I had it on VHS. I think it was because of the runaway scene and some of the funny moments in the episode, like James's bad attitude towards Edward's running lateness. And I also love James's fireman's reaction to him being told the news about the boys fiddling with James's controls before he runs off.
Two boys were on James's footplate fiddling with the controls. Phew!
You may remember I made fun of that little reaction in one of my episodes of TTTE, having the cinnamon actually question why James's fireman was saying phew to the news, since you'd think he would be more shocked by it. Okay, so it's like this. Two boys were on James's footplate fiddling with the controls. Phew! Wait, what do you mean phew? James is running away on his own, and all you can say is phew? Makes you wonder what must have been going through the fireman's head when he heard the news. Perhaps he thought there was a ghost on board or something, I don't know. The episode once again shows realism as the cinnamon halts all traffic along the line to avoid any crashes. Since James is a runaway engine, he wants to avoid any other engines and road vehicles and having a collision with James, preventing a serious accident. It's also super amazing how the large-scale cinnamon and firemen are in a Cinnabots interior that's quite close to the model set. It was like they purposely made this large-scale set just to fit it in with the scale models so that they could show the workings of the yards from inside the Cinnabots' windows. That is a super clever move that the team did right there. I also really love how James is starting to enjoy running down the line as fast as he can without having to do some shunting. because we all know James hates trucks and shunting and would rather pull coaches. It's just really nice to see James's enjoyment of it before he finally realises that he's in danger. And I love how Ringo Starr pulls off James's sudden realisation of it, going from very excited and laughing to extreme panicking.
Suddenly he was going faster and faster. He realised that he had no driver. What shall I do? I can't stop! Help! Help!
And the episode saw the return of the classic Runaway theme from Series 1. And they amped it up for this episode, making it feel more epic and life-threatening than the first time we heard it. Another thing that makes this episode stand out for me is the fact that James takes centre stage here, since he's been one of my favourite characters throughout the TV series. And I'm going to try not to talk about every single goof for this series because there's really no point to it since we all know them. But in the restored version of the episode, when the Fat Controller congratulates Edward's crew, we can see that the sky behind him is all black, whereas in the original version we saw actual sky. And I don't know what the hell that was about. I mean, did Hit Entertainment filter that sky when they remastered it for the DVD releases, or was it another Photoshop? It's just really weird that this would happen in the restored version of the episode. So after previous episodes of nice simple episodes and one chase episode, O Donnell is a really nice Runaway episode that the kids who enjoy Runaway episodes will really get behind and enjoy a lot. This is an episode that I can watch tons of times over and over again and never get tired of it. And I definitely recommend checking this one out. It's got a great Runaway, 2 great characters, and it's just an all-around great episode in my opinion. You'll get lots of entertainment out of it, and you'll love the Runaway.
Phew!